Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for coming out and joining us here for Values Emphasis Week 2018. We really appreciate your being here for this kickoff event tonight. And it's a special time in our campus and our community. And it's so nice to see so many community leaders that have also joined us for this presentation this evening. As Andy mentioned, during Values Emphasis Week, we celebrate the values that make up the Code of Ethics of Northwood University. These are the values that differentiate our university and the Northwood idea, our philosophy. Freedom, as Andy mentioned, is the very first value listed in our Code of Ethics. And at Northwood, we strive to exercise personal freedom. And we know that we would not be possible without the selfless service of our nation's military. And we are so proud this evening to have a member of the military, a veteran of our military service here to speak with you. Tonight, we welcome to the campus someone who understands the value of freedom, someone who has served his country, someone who was prepared to give his life for others. Spencer Stone is a former Air Force Staff Sergeant who, back in 2015, thwarted a major terrorist attack aboard a Paris-bound train. Unarmed, he rushed toward danger, subduing and disarming a man who was wielding an assault rifle, a pistol, a set of box cutters, and enough ammunition to kill every person on that train. Spencer and his friends saved hundreds of lives that day. And despite serious injuries, as the result of the encounter, they provided life-saving care to a man who had received a gunshot wound to the throat during the attack. French President Francois Hollande presented Spencer with the nation's highest decoration, the Legion of Honor, just 3 days after this actually occurred. And in fact, some of our students, a unique coincidence, some of our students just this past weekend had the opportunity to meet another individual that has recently received the Legion of Honor from the French president. That individual's name is Mort Harris. And unlike Spencer, who received the honor just 3 days after his heroic efforts, Mr. Harris had to wait 75 years before his heroism during World War II was recognized. And he was one of our outstanding business leaders that were honored this past weekend, and a number of our students had the opportunity to meet with this spry, young 98-year-old gentleman who has made a real difference in the world, just like Spencer. Well, upon Spencer's return to the States, he was honored in a ceremony at the Pentagon and was awarded the Airman's Medal and a Purple Heart. And if this sounds a little familiar, I noticed some of you are carrying his book with you this evening, probably hoping to see if you can get him to sign it. But just this winter, the film that was made from the book, the 1517 to Paris, came out in the theaters this past winter, and it's based on Spencer's incredible story. In a stunning turn of events, just a month and a half after the Paris attack, and just a few days before Spencer was supposed to return to active duty, he was brutally attacked in his own hometown. And I'll let him tell you more about that story, but it could have ended very badly for him and others. Spencer's actions seem to prove that old adage that heroes are almost always ordinary people who, when confronted by great challenges, respond in extraordinary fashion. And that's certainly his story. Spencer will tonight share his story with us. In addition to exemplifying the value of freedom, he will touch upon all of our values: respect, empathy, spirituality, honesty, achievement, integrity, and responsibility. All the values of Northwood University's Code of Ethics can be found in this story, and we're honored to have him here to share it with all of you. So please give him a warm Northwood University welcome to Spencer Stone. Spencer?
Well, after that introduction, I don't really need to tell my story anymore, I guess. But yeah, so I'll start off by just giving you a little bit background of how I grew up and kind of my journey into the military and what happened on the train and the first account of what happened and the aftermath. So I'm Spencer Stone. I'm 25 years old. I was born and raised in Sacramento, California. You know, throughout life, I honestly just kind of breezed through it. I didn't ever really try too hard. I skipped a lot of class in high school. I don't even know how I graduated, to be honest. So, you know, I narrowly graduated high school, and I kind of come to a point in my life where I realized that I'd pretty much, you know, wasted the first 18 years. And I hadn't really done much at all. And so I you know, kind of was pushed into the thought pattern of I just wanted to do something crazy with my life. I wanted to do something amazing, and I wanted to kind of, you know, earn the life I've been given. And so I made the choice to join the United States Air Force, and they had this program called PJs, and it stands for Pararescue, and their job is to be paramedics that fly in helicopters, and they go behind enemy lines and pick up wounded soldiers that have been you know, wounded in combat. And so I thought, you know, that sounds crazy. And so I might as well do that. And medical is something I've always been interested in, so I'm going to do it. But when I started the process, I was about 50 to 60 pounds overweight, so I had some work to do. You know, I started running every day. I was juicing like crazy. When I first told my recruiter I was juicing, he said, "Steroids?" And I said, no, like just for fruits and vegetables. I've been on a juicing diet. So it took me about a year. You know, I got really good time for my runs. I put on a bunch of muscle, swimming like crazy, in the best shape of my life. And then I go to the MEPS station where, you know, you go to get checked out by the doctors and make sure you're qualified for the job. And I go to take the depth perception test, and turns out that I have zero depth perception. And I never realized, you know, I was able to make the varsity basketball team in high school. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, how would I have ever even hit a shot if I didn't have depth perception? This is crazy. So I kind of, you know, I'm at a point where, okay, I worked a year for this. I still, you know, I feel very unfulfilled with my life, and I need to do something. So I said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and join anyway. I worked this hard. I feel like God has been pushing me into this direction, so I'm going to do it. And then so they gave me another list of jobs. I came across SEER, which stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. And you're basically trained to be an instructor for other pilots, crew members, anyone that has the chance of being captured by the enemy and being in a bad situation. And you train them to survive in whatever type of environment they'll find themselves in, and you train them to be a POW, and so they can make it home. And so I go into that career field, and you know, I wasn't too excited about it. It wasn't exactly my passion, but you know, I gave it everything I got, and I failed out 2 weeks in. And so at this point, I'm like, I can't do anything right. You know, like, what am I doing? And then I get to the point where, okay, and you get reclassed into another job because they've already invested so much money into you. They're not going to send you home and basically be a waste. And so I, you know, had a list of jobs. You choose 5 jobs that you would like the most. I put medical technician as my number 1, and I was able to get that job. So I said, okay, that's awesome. You know, at least I can do something I'm interested in. I go to medical school. I get my EMT license. And I started working in a pediatric clinic. And then I find myself, you know, you join the military to travel, and when I had joined the military, I had never even left the state of California. And so, funny enough, I find myself being stationed 45 minutes away from where I grew up at Travis Air Force Base. So I'm like, okay, all right, I joined the military to see the world, sure. And then, so, you know, that turned out to be a very good thing for me. I learned a lot. I loved working in pediatrics, great career field. Then, randomly out of nowhere, I get this email saying you're being PCS, you're being stationed somewhere else. You're going to Lajes Airfield. I said, where the heck is Lajes Airfield? I typed it in on Google Maps. This little dot dropped right in the middle of the ocean, and it was in the Azores, which is a group of 9 islands, I think about 700 to 800 miles off the coast of Portugal. So I said, awesome, this is going to be great. Went there, some of the best times of my life. But then, I'm so close to Europe, I'm thinking, hey, I want to go explore Europe a little bit. I got about 45 days of vacation saved up. I'm going to go on a trip. Then I go kind of recruit my friends Anthony and Alec, who I had actually grown up next to. My Aunt Alec's mother is my mother's neighbor, and they're still neighbors to this day. We've been neighbors since we were about 5 years old. And then me and Alec met Anthony in middle school, so collectively we've been friends since we were about 12. And so I hit up Alec first. I said, hey, I'm thinking about going on this Europe trip. You should come with me. He was in Afghanistan at the time, and I was thinking this would be good for him, a little R&R right when he gets back from deployment. We'll have a good time. Haven't seen him in a while. So he says, yeah, hey, I'm on board. Let's do it. And then I go recruit my friend Anthony. He was in college at the time, going to Sacramento State, studying kinesiology. And he was about a year away from graduating at this point. And I said, hey, I'm going over to Europe. You're welcome to come, and we're going to have a good time. Let's do it. And he's like, I got no money. And I'm like, that's cool, man. Just take out a credit card, baby. It's all good. You'll pay it back. And he said, all right. He didn't have a credit card. He gets approved for a $10,000 credit card within a few days. So I'm like, all right, we're on. Let's go. Alec, he ended up ditching us, of course, for a German girl for the first part of our trip. And he was kind of hanging out with her in Germany. So me and Anthony started in Rome, worked our way up to Venice, then went to Munich, Berlin, Amsterdam, and that's where we met Alec. And so now we're all three in Amsterdam having a good time on the weekend, or just before the weekend. And our next trip is Paris. And we've been hearing this entire time that, hey, French people are rude, it's expensive, you don't want to go there. It's, just maybe you should go somewhere else. Think about it. So we said, okay. And I'm running low on money. I got like $600 left. I didn't know what I was thinking. We had about 15 days left of vacay. So, we're kind of going back and forth, contemplating, should we go? Should we not go? We meet a few people that kind of influenced us to go. And we bought our tickets already, so we figured it was more of a hassle than it was worth. We said, hey, let's just go. We'll get our picture with the Eiffel Tower, do the cliche stuff, and we'll get out of there and we'll go to Spain. And so we said, okay, we go to the train station. We're waiting for our train, and we see an elderly couple with their luggage, and they ask us to help us take their luggage on board and help the older man go to his seat. And so we go in there, we help him out. Very nice people. We find this. We had first class tickets because $10,000 credit limit. We're ballers. So we go in there, we kind of see an area that we like, and we're like, oh, okay, this ain't bad. This is about what the first class is like. Let's just sit here, and this will be good. And so we take our seats. There's no one else around, but on the Europe system, they're kind of, they're on you about your seat assignment. So eventually, we knew we'd probably have to move. But then what really did it was bad Wi-Fi. We're millennials, and we wanted to post our pictures and do all that. And so I said, hey, there's bad Wi-Fi here. I'm going to go check first class what we pay for. We might as well go up there. We're going to get told to move anyway. So I go up, check first class. Beautiful in there. It's awesome. Seating's much nicer. Wi-Fi's way better. So I go back, get my friends. I'm like, hey, come on, let's go. Let's go up to first class. We go up there. We take our seats, we get little snacks. If you've seen the movie, my little friend gets his baby soda. I'm kind of chillaxing. Me and Anthony are drinking some wine, and then I fall asleep. Anthony falls asleep as well. Alec is on his phone, kind of checking our location, texting the German girl back, of course. And so, meanwhile, while this is all happening, there's a man who's a confirmed member of ISIS. His name is Ayoub El-Kazani. He had boarded the train in Brussels, and he had come on board with an AK-47, nearly 300 rounds of ammunition, a 9mm Luger pistol, and a box cutter, a hammer, and some gasoline. So you could kind of tell what he's going to do from there. And so he goes into the bathroom, and he starts watching extremist jihadist videos, beheadings, shootings, things like that to get himself pumped up. Meanwhile, he's in the bathroom. There's two men outside waiting to go. One wants to remain anonymous, rightly so. He lives in Paris. He's worried about his family. And then another man, Mark McGallion. They've kind of realized this guy's been in there a long time. They kind of think something's up, but they're just still waiting to go to the bathroom. Ayub comes out of the bathroom, ready to go, shirtless, backpack strapped to the front of him, whole AK in hand, locks eyes with Damien, the anonymous man, and they start to get into an initial scuffle. They're fighting. Mark has never touched a firearm in his entire life, so his first reaction is to take the gun away from him and just get it out of there. And that was one of the best moves he could have done, because, well, not for him, but he grabs it, runs out from the corridor into our train car. Ayub El-Kazani pulls out the pistol after he's able to break free from Damien. We believe that the magazine fell out of the gun and that there was only one bullet left in the chamber, but that was enough to take Mark out. He shoots him in the back. The bullet ricochets through his body, collapses his left lung, breaks two ribs, and then comes up through his neck, severs his carotid artery. And so he drops to the ground. He's immediately bleeding, gushing blood everywhere. I had my headphones on. I had a little adult NyQuil, a little French wine, so I'm knocked out. And then all of a sudden, I see a train employee sprinting down the aisle, going towards the front of the train, and I, thinking that's weird. That doesn't look normal. And I look over at my friend Anthony across the aisle, and he's just waking up as well. I look to the left, I see Alec, and he's got a face on him that looks like he just saw a ghost. And so I take my headphones off, and the first thing I hear is glass breaking, people screaming. I turn around towards the back of the train, and the first thing I see is Ayub El-Kazani bending down, picking up the AK-47, and loading around into the chamber. And I knew immediately what he was there to do. I turned around, I looked down the aisle, kind of waited. He looked like he had either jammed the gun or he had the safety on or something, because he just hadn't started shooting yet. And so I kind of was thinking to myself, hey, this is something's wrong with this gun. We got to go. This is now or never. Otherwise, we're going to die. And my friend hits me on the shoulder. He says, "Go, Spencer." And that's all I really needed. I took off down the aisle, assuming I was going to be shot. Ayub takes the AK-47, points it at me, pulls the trigger, but the gun doesn't go off. It's actually a bad primer in the bullet. And so if you don't know what a primer is, it sparks the gunpowder inside the casing. The firing pin sits behind it and hits it and creates the spark. And it was a dud, so it's just faulty ammunition. So it doesn't go off. The gun was working just fine. So that's like something that doesn't happen a lot. I think the actual stat is 1 in 20,000. And so that gives me enough time to make it to him. I'm running down the aisle. I tackle him. I kind of hear my old football coach, Coach Fears, and yes, that's his real name. I hear him in the back of my head, "Drop your knees down." I hit him. As soon as I hit him, Ayub kind of hits me in the face with the gun. I just taste gunpowder. I can't see out of one eye. I'm thinking my face is all messed up, and I'm just like, oh, this is a great way to start the fight. And then kind of fall on the ground with him. At the time, I was practicing jiu-jitsu, thank God, and I'd been training for up to a year at this point. And so that's kind of what I went to immediately. I was on the ground with him, kind of wrestling. I was trying to grab the AK from him, but he kept kind of prying it out of my hands. And then we both stood up. I swung myself around him, and I was able to put him in a rear naked choke. And then I slammed myself and him against the wall in between the table and some chairs. And so now we're laying across these chairs next to the aisle. I'm thinking he doesn't have anything else, so I'm just trying to choke him out. I'm trying to do everything I can to survive. I don't know if he's got friends with him. I don't know if he's got a bomb. And then my buddy runs up, thank God. As soon as my buddy runs up, he pulls out the pistol, reaches back like this, puts it to my head, pulls the trigger, doesn't go off. He had dropped the magazine earlier, And so that was another near miss. My buddy had picked up the AK-47 when he ran up, but when he saw that happening, obviously he threw it down and pried the pistol out of his hands. And now we're like, okay, for sure, he's got nothing else. We're good now. Then I feel a slight burn on the back of my neck, and then I look over as I'm trying to choke him, and I see my thumb, and it's bent about halfway back, and I could see the bone. He had severed my tendon and nerve, almost kind of cut it off, and then he had been actually slashing at the back of my neck here, trying to slit my throat. So I have 2 long slashes on the back of my neck now. But the adrenaline was going so much, I barely even felt it. And so I screamed, "Hey, he's got a knife, he's got a knife! Get him off me." I kick him off me. Now at this point, he's in the center of the aisle. Myself, Alec, Anthony are all standing around him, and we just punch and kick and do whatever we can to get this guy down. He drops the knife in the middle of that, and then he's either pushed into me or he lunges at me, and we throw him over the table, and we're all kind of putting our body weight on top of him. And my buddy Alec takes the pistol and tries to shoot him with that. Click, click, doesn't go off. We realize there's no ammunition in it. Alec chucks the pistol. He can't, it's useless now. And then I was able to just throw him in another choke, and then eventually choke him unconscious. And I thought it was over, right? He's asleep at this point. We're alive. Everything's all good. I hear my friend Alec and Anthony yell out, "Hey, this guy's been hit." And I go, well, what? What's happening? And I look over, I peek my head over the seats, and I see Mark standing up. And it's the first time I've seen, I didn't hear the gunshot, I didn't know anything happened, so I'm confused. I'm wondering how he even got hurt. He stands up, just gushing blood, literally spurting across the aisle of the train, and then he collapses in the middle of the aisle. So I scream, "Hey, I'm a medic, I'm a medic. Someone hold this guy down, make sure he doesn't wake up." I crawl over to Mark, I take my shirt off, and because I was originally just going to use the shirt as a bandage just to hold pressure with. Once I realized that there was pressure coming from his wound, I knew it was his carotid artery, and so I just chucked that and then stuck my hand in his neck, and I could actually feel the artery pulsating inside of his neck, and then I just pressed down, and the blood flow just completely stopped. And I just had a moment of, thank God, because I'd worked in a pediatric clinic my entire military career. I'd never seen anything like this. I'd been handing out lollipops and stickers for the past 3 years. And so, I'm just saying, thank God, okay. And now at this point, I'm just trying to keep him awake. I'm trying to keep him alert. He has his wife there, Issa. I tell her, "Hey, do you know this guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's my husband." And I said, "Okay, come over here, help me, keep him awake, talk to him for me." So we're talking to him. I'm asking him where he's from. He was born in Virginia, married Isabel, a French woman, and now lives in France. So I said, "Hey, we're both Americans. That's awesome. Hey, man, it's going to be all good. I'm hurt, you're hurt. We're in it together. You're going to make it out of this. You're going to be just fine. I was able to stop your bleeding. You just got to make it to the next train station." And we had pretty much taken over the train, the newest members of the Thales train company. Once we got to the police and the ambulance, it was just like, man, the cavalry is here, thank God. And it was just a whirlwind ever since. But I was going to say earlier about when I was on the ground with Mark, which I always think is kind of funny. So, I had obviously raised to be very religious. I grew up in a Christian household. And I never had actually was able to bring anyone to Christ per se, personally myself. And so I'm on the ground with Mark thinking, this is my moment, And I'm talking, this is, in the middle, probably 15 minutes into it, and I say, "Hey, because I still don't think he's going to survive. He had lost so much blood at this point. Even though I was able to stop his bleeding, I thought he was still going to pass." And so I said, "Hey, Mark, you want to say a prayer with me, man?" And he goes, "You know what? I think I'm good." And I'm just like, all right. Confident man, But I was like, dang it, all right, next time. Then so, from there, we received the Legion of Honor from France just 3 days after. We had, gone to the Pentagon, been awarded by the military, Secretary Ash Carter, Secretary of the Air Force, and got to have a private 15-minute meeting with President Obama in the Oval Office. And so just had some wonderful experiences post-train attack. And we had gone on kind of like this big media tour for about 6 weeks. And it was the best time of our lives. I got to take my family with me and, just go on these cool talk shows. I got a car from Jimmy Kimmel. And flying to Washington, D.C. was actually the first time me, my mom, my brother, and sister had all been on a plane together as a family. So it was just like a really cool moment, and just awesome that I get to bring them along with it. And so 6 weeks goes by, media tour's done, had an amazing time. It's still kind of grueling because you're just flying all over the place. I come home, I say I'm going to take a few days off, I'm going to go back to work on Friday. I hit up some old friends that I used to work with at Jamba Juice. Actually, one of the girls that was with me hired me for my first job at Jamba Juice. And so I've known her a long time. We go out to the club, we're drinking, not the best look for this story, but it is what it is. We go out, one of the girls ends up drinking too much, she's throwing up at this point. So we're outside of the club now, waiting to go home. It was me, 3 girls, one other guy. I had just met that guy that night. He was a new boyfriend of one of the girls. He said, I'm going to go grab the car, and I'm going to come around and pick you guys up. I said, okay, I'll wait here with them. I'm waiting with them. I'm with Megan, who is throwing up, and just kind of making sure she's good. And 5 guys and a few other girls ended up walking by, and they ended up being a part of this pretty notorious Asian gang called Hop Sing, and they ran out of San Francisco. And they pull out their phone, and they start recording her on Snapchat, shining the phone light in their face, kind of making a big scene of Megan throwing up. And so I initially got up and I said, hey, what are you doing? Back up, stop. Then the girls I was with got up in the guy's face, and they're going off on him, screaming. And so now things are getting out of control, and I realize, I'm the only guy here. There's 5 guys. I'm going to have to fight them if anything, goes down. And basically, so now I'm trying to de-escalate the situation, kind of something I started, but and so now I'm kind of in the middle. The guy's on my back. My girlfriend Lisa is in front of me. I'm pushing her back. I'm saying, Lisa, let's go, let's get out of here. Next thing I know, the guy hops over my back, punches Lisa in the face. She's probably getting her teeth knocked out. She just got hit really hard. And then he takes out the knife and tries to stab her. And at that point, I just turned around and started swinging myself. I still had the cast on from my my hand injury from the train. And so I was just throwing rights all day, trying to slap him with my cast. And so, now I throw one punch, they're all on me. I'm against this wall for a little bit. I'm just swinging for my life. All I'm thinking is, don't hit the ground, Spencer. You're going to get kicked in the head and get killed. And so I run out into the street, kind of engage with them there. Now I'm kind of backing up into the street, trying to get away from them. And I basically, hit one of them to the ground. And I go, and I'm thinking to myself, they're not stopping at this point. I got to knock them all out if I have to, I guess. I go to hit him while he's on the ground. As soon as I hit him while he's on the ground, his friend comes up behind me and stabs me in the back. And then I just, I know what that feels like. So I said, oh, he just stabbed me. And then I turned around, and I kind of squared up with him in the middle of the street. And just to confirm, he's got the knife. I see him holding it to the side like this. And that's when I just go, whoa, buddy, all right. And I turn around, and I kind of run down the street in the other direction. Luckily, they stopped following me after that, and they all kind of dispersed. But then I'm walking away, and I'm going, I'm like, damn, am I really that out of shape? Okay. And then I look down, and I see blood, blood, blood. I realized I'd been stabbed 4 times. I got stabbed in the heart, the lung, my liver, and in my back, of course. Collapsed my lung, nicked the pericardium of my heart. And, there's 5 stages to death. First is denial. The last is acceptance, and I felt like I went from denial all the way to acceptance and skipped everything in between. And I just looked at myself and like, again? Really? Come on. And I'm just, a taxi driver comes up to me and he's saying, hey, you want me to take you to the ambulance? And I said, no, I had seen the ambulance just a minute ago. I knew they were right around the block. So I just said, just call 911. And then I kind of laid down on the ground, and my friends came over me. It was just like a movie scene. They were like, oh, we're so sorry, oh my gosh. And I said, just tell my mom, brother, and my sister I love them, and everything's going to be okay. And I just remember closing my eyes and pretty much just falling asleep and thinking I died, and then I woke up in the ambulance. I was luckily about a 6-minute ambulance ride away from a level 1 trauma center. I had to have emergency open heart surgery and exploratory surgery in my stomach. I had bilateral chest tubes. They had actually nicked my other lung in surgery, but hey, they did a good job. I'm alive. So, but that was a whole another crazy experience. And so at this point, I had woken up. I remember everything that happened in the hospital. I even had a cop who was basically trying to get the story out of me before I died, because I was declared a homicide before I even got to the hospital. And he's talking to me. He said, what happened? What they look like? Blah, blah, blah. And at the end of it, he grabs my shoulder and he goes, good luck. And I'm just like, oh, okay, all right. And then from there, I had woken up in the ICU, and the doctors, said, hey, it only nicked the outer pericardium of your heart. Your lung will be okay. The damage done to your liver was probably less damage than when we do in surgery. And actually, the knife wound in my back was about 1.5 inches away from my spinal cord. Missed all my nerves. So 100% recovery. You're going to be just fine. Day later, I'm still in the ICU, and just counting my lucky stars. And there's actually someone dying next to me in the other room. And I can hear, all the commotion going on. I work in a hospital, seeing people die, and I know what it's like, know what's going on. Everyone's running over there. The family is there, so they're witnessing this. And I just hear, I hear the dad yelling, you gotta wake up, John, you gotta wake up. And that's when, I knew that he was passing. And I kind of just played it off. So I sit there, I listen to the whole thing happen. Meanwhile, I got 6 tubes hanging out of me. And, I just came back from a terrorist attack, got stabbed in my hometown, and here I am. I'm going to be totally okay. Nurse comes into my room. I kind of act stupid. I say, hey, what happened over there? So, well, we just had someone die. I said, well, what did he die of? He said, pneumonia. I said, okay, it's pretty treatable. How old was he? He said, 18 years old. And so here I am. And that's when I knew that this kid over here is dying of pneumonia at 18 years old. I just survived a terrorist attack and came out of it with a few cuts and bruises, and then came back to my hometown, get stabbed in the heart, my lung, my liver, and I'm going to be totally okay. That's when I knew that I had to earn this life I've been given. And that's my challenge for you guys to get from this, is to earn the life you've been given, because, there's how many people die out there all the time of the most random things sometimes. And here we are. We're all very blessed to be, you guys are blessed to be in this great university. We're blessed to be in this great country. And, you just got to earn it. And that's how I feel with my life now. I feel like, I'm here for a reason. God didn't spare me for nothing. And, you just got to do good unto others. Do good by your family. Do good to your coworkers. Do good to your friends. And do good to yourself. And the thing about character is that your whole entire life, you're told to have good moral character. But how do we do that? We feel like there's so many things in life that can compromise your character. And if you do one bad thing, you're not a good person. But the thing about character is that the first syllable of character is care. So I believe that if you care about others and you do that first, then the rest of it will follow. That's my story, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Oh, am I on? Good. Thank you, Spencer. Spencer's agreed to take some questions. If there are any, we've got 2 microphones, I think one back here and one back here. If you would, just raise your hand and we can bring the microphone to you and you can ask your question of Spencer.
Got one right there.
Right here. Right here. In the back.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So what what's your current status in terms of your military service?
So I actually got an honorable discharge from the military late last year, and we had actually wrote the book during the time while I was in the military, and pretty much right when I got done, the movie got picked up, and I've been doing that ever since. So now I'm kind of at like I'm discharged, still technically in the inactive reserve. So if something happens and North Korea wants to go crazy, I can get called back. But right now, just kind of in another limbo and figuring out what I'm going to do.
When you were on the train and you were rushing that guy
Yes, sir.
and he pulled the trigger on that gun and it didn't go off, what was your exact thought at that second?
Well, so I wasn't aware that that was the case. I can hear him messing with the gun as I was running up to him, but I think I either blacked out or I closed my eyes because I just expected I was going to get shot running up to him. But when I initially stood up and ran at him, I didn't have any hope of thinking I was actually going to make it to him. I just said, you know, hey, we're going 200 miles an hour on this train. There's nowhere to go. You know, he's got an AK-47. It's either do something or wait and sit here and wait for him to walk up to us and shoot us. And so I just said, you know, might as well take the chance, and at least hopefully my family will know that I went out like a man.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes, sir.
one vet to another. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
Is it too late to ask a question or not? So what I like about you is a lot. And I can say I really speak for everybody here because all of us are trying to say, could we do this if we were in your place? And so I have actually a 2-part question. One has to do, it's obviously I'm not 25, but should those of us in real life, so to speak, learn a little jujitsu or how to take away a gun or, you know, is there any kind of preparation you give for a civilian? That's question 1.
Okay. You know, I've been asked that a lot, and my situation is totally unique, and I think any type of different situation is. There's no blueprint, I think, to what exactly you can do. There's only suggestions. I would never tell anyone to run after a guy with an AK-47. I think that was a little insane on my part.
I don't.
Yeah.
There were no options.
You're the only one. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how I felt.
Made sense to me.
But I think, yeah, if you can do things like take jujitsu, at least know how a firearm works, because that's the thing, you know, I was able to get to the guy and tackle him, but if I didn't know jujitsu and what to do with the gun, if I can get it from him, what am I going to do then? And so another thing I kind of say, I think it's more important, honestly, to build the mentality first of what you would do in that situation. And I think a lot of people, they think about it, but they never really ask themselves exactly what they would do. And I think my advantage was was that I had asked myself what I would do, and I had an answer for myself, and I think that's what allowed me to go without any hesitation. And so I think if you can answer yourself that question to you alone, then I think that's the first step.
You know, you talk about your Christian. I don't know if it's on. or
You're
not.
fine. I can hear you.
You talk about your Christian upbringing and so forth, which is an emphasis on service and alignment and to live a life of meaning. And what I take away from your comments is I, who was sort of lackadaisical for a lot of my life, got thrown into a life of meaning by accident. And now that I'm there, I want to earn it, right?
Yes.
But it's a better way of living. Maybe I'm just asking you that or hoping you'll say that.
No.
Then sort of, la-di-da.
No,
Would
absolutely.
you comment on that, the road to meaning?
Yeah, you know, well, throughout my life, like I was saying, I hadn't really tried hard either. I'd have no sense of fulfillment. But it was, and actually in the movie, there's a scene of me and my friend Anthony talking about this. We felt like there's something pushing us towards something, and that was a scene based off conversations we've had, not the exact dialogue, but along the lines. And I just kind of always felt like there was something I was supposed to do, and I feel like everyone kind of has that feeling. And I felt like, but it was my job to pursue it and to find it, I guess. And I didn't know I was searching for that. I just, you know, wanted to go in the military and serve my country, and I thought that was going to be something that filled that void. But I think, you know, if there's anything I learned throughout my life, it seemed like it was like a preparation for that moment. Like almost that my entire first 23 years was exactly for that. Because when I add up all the pieces, I had everything I needed to get the job done, but at the end of the day, it was still my choice whether to act or not. And so I think we all have, you know, a purpose for our lives. We don't know what that is, but I think that's why I feel so lucky to be able to know that at such a young age, and because I think a lot of people don't find out till later in life, and they can go the entire time with that until maybe even the end, till they realize what their life was for. And so a lot of the times I think people spend the majority of their lives thinking they haven't done anything, but in reality, your moment is right around the corner.
I hope every student will remember that. Are you all listening to him?
I have a question right here.
Where are
Right
you?
here, I'm sorry.
There you are. Okay.
So how did you feel when they wanted to make your life a movie or that whole, and like how did you tell them that the incident, even with the club soda, like did you have to sit down in a room and just discuss every specific incident detail that you could remember, or what was that like?
Well, you know, when we were writing the book, that was, you know, the book was an awesome thing for us because I felt like it was the first time that we were, after the big whirlwind and everything that had happened, that we were able to sit down and actually go through our thoughts and emotions and what exactly occurred. So it was almost like a therapeutic thing. But, you know, on the business side of it, the goal was to turn the book into a movie eventually, and that's what a lot of people try and do. And we were, you know, lucky enough to meet Mr. Eastwood at an award show, and we kind of made a weak sales pitch. And we're like, hey, you should turn our book into a movie, ha. And then it worked. And then, you know, we sent him the book. Didn't hear anything from him in a while. But eventually, long story short, we were able to get it to him. And then through the movie process, what they do is they just bring you down. You meet everyone that's going to be involved in the making of the movie, and you kind of rehash everything. It was very casual. Every time we went down there, you know, I went in like a suit. It came with my notes and everything. And but we ended up just sitting on a couch with our feet kicked up on the table, just telling him a story and telling him about our lives. And he asked us, you know, what are your goals for this movie? You know, like if there's a couple of things that people get from it, what do you want? And you know, I said, okay, number one, because I try and always make it a point in my speeches or it's an interview or whatever, whenever I'm talking to anyone, that I feel that God was instrumental into what happened that day, and I feel I'm indebted to God for my life. And so I said, number one, I want God to be in the movie. I don't want it to be sugar-coated either. I want it to be obvious. And 2, I just want the train sequence and the fight to be as accurate as possible. And that's something I've said as well. I'm very happy with the film because it almost feels like he took the train sequence from my brain and just projected it onto the screen. And so when you go watch the movie, the train sequence is almost to the T what happened. But I could go on for days about it, but that's the gist of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I got a question back here to your left.
Right here.
Right
What's that, man?
And kind of talking with everything that goes on, I want to know, 1, do you ever find yourself like in awe, just looking back retrospectively after everything that happens? And 2, how much has your faith in God grown after knowing like everything that happened with the gun not going off and your near-death experiences? Just could you talk on that?
Yeah, man. I'm still honestly, I can't even believe I did it, to be honest. I didn't really think I had that in me. And so when I tell the story myself, I'm like, like, dang, I did that, okay. And second is absolutely. I had always, I guess been in touch. And my relationship with God was always more of a personal relationship. I guess I wasn't always a fan of religion per se, organized religion, and I kind of just believed in talking to God myself and praying and reading the Bible and studying the Word on my own and kind of going on like a solo journey and not really talking about it too much. And I think that also kind of stemmed from me coming from a private Christian school where I kind of left with a bad taste in my mouth. But that experience completely changed my perspective and relationship on God, and it's done nothing but strengthen it and solidify it. And that's what I was saying earlier too. I feel so lucky to have that confirmation, because I think a lot of people in life are looking for that confirmation from God. And they're like, show me, God, like, either show yourself or just be present in my life. And I feel like I got that, and I just feel extremely fortunate. And I think it kind of sucks to say that I had to go through that to find that out, but it's done nothing but strengthen it. Thank you, man.
Spencer, okay.
Yeah.
I have kind of a light-hearted question.
Okay.
Alex was on Dancing with the Stars,
Yeah.
and maybe you could give us the scoop today as to whether they've contacted you, and are you going to do it?
I don't know. It's funny. When Alec first went on the show, when he got the offer, we were like, are you sure you should do that? Like, you're going to make us look stupid, Alec. You're going to get voted off first episode. And but then once he told us how much money they were going to pay him, we're like, go ahead, do your thing. But they gave the offer to all of us when it first happened. But I had my injury and I was in the military, so active duty, so I said no. And then, it was just like a thing, like, oh, Alec, go ahead, you take it. That's your thing. We're not trying to go out there and do it. I don't know if I would. I don't think so. I don't got the moves like Alec does. But if I did, you'd vote for me, right? Okay. Aw. Okay, all right. Well, you can call and vote 10 times, so I expect max votes.
So was the terrorist known to be associated with ISIS, or was it more of a copycat kind of situation? Because it just seems like everything's crazy with all the both guns not working.
Yeah, I know, right? You would think they'd send someone a little more well-trained and well-equipped. But I didn't find that out till after the fact. He had been linked to the same terrorist cell that committed the Bataclan theater attack, which is in October of 2015, and the Brussels airport bombing. So he's from Morocco and actually grew up with all those guys, and so he was a part of their cell. So yeah, he was confirmed ISIS, and he was actually on the FBI, the terror watch list. And he had made a trip to Syria just before the attack. I'm assuming that's where he got his weapons. So yeah, he's full-fledged ISIS. And so the investigation is actually still going on with the French government. And it's been expanded since because of his relation to these guys. And we're hoping to go to trial with him in the next few years. Hopefully he'll get, 20 to 25 years in France, and then hopefully we'll have something on the U.S. side that will bring him over here, and he'll spend the rest of his life in jail. Yes,
First
sir.
of all, thank you very much for your service, Spencer, here and abroad. And thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you, man.
Was there anyone in your life who stood out as a role model or helped you have the courage that you did to stop that attack?
For sure, my mother. And I know that's a very cliche answer, but she's one of my heroes. She, kind of had, a not so great family situation. My dad was a pretty big alcoholic, and they had separated when I was 2. Well, thankfully they had separated when I was 2. My mother raised us all on her own, no help, no child support, given up a lot of her own life aspirations to help raise me, my brother, and my sister, and pretty much just gave it all to give us the life that we had. And I think that's another part of why I chose to kind of go in the direction I did, because I just felt like, she had given up her life for me, and so I better go make her proud, and so that's really it. Thank you.
So, does ISIS have it out for you right now? I don't mean to ask
they
that.
always release those like ISIS hit list things, and I'm checking it. Like, oh, is my name on there? But who knows? I can't control that. If they're gonna come after me for some type of retribution or, whatever, then bring it on. And I'm ready to go because I know where I'm going. But I'm sure, whatever the result is, that's it. I don't know. Can't really say much about that. Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever make it to Paris?
I did actually. Over the next few days, I got to take a motorcade from a city we stopped in to Paris. I got to stay in this really nice house that belonged to the ambassador, and I got to sleep in the same the same bed that President Obama sleeps in when he visits France. And I bled all over the bed.
I was just wondering what happened to Mark.
Mark, I kind of left that out, I guess. Well, actually, if you've seen the movie, he plays himself in the movie as well, and his wife, and a lot of the other people that were involved that day. But he ended up surviving, and he has a little nerve damage in one of his left arms, but he's slowly regaining it. And so he is alive and well. He lives in Paris, and I've actually seen him a few times. We ended up having that beer in France together, and he's a good friend of mine now.
That you're kind of listless with no purpose, and what would you tell that age group today, those 17, 18-year-olds today, as far as giving them a purpose and a track to be on?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer sometimes, but the way I did it was I don't think I ever even taken the time to think about what I really wanted to do. Before I knew it, high school was over, and all my friends had taken the SAT, and I was like, wait, when were the SATs? So so it wasn't until then, and I realized what the situation I was in and what I did to myself, where I had to stop and think, what do you want to do, Spencer? And so I think if you just kind of really search, I guess, and from there, something I've always done is just trust my gut, and I've kind of went with what I felt like I wanted to do and what was right. And so I just did that, and my life turned out to be this. So I think if you just got to make a decision, you got to put some traction to it and get moving. Don't overthink things. Just try and go for something that you're interested in and what feels good for you.
Have you experienced any negative consequences from this at all? I know, if this had happened to most people, they might be afraid to, go on a train again or travel abroad or things like that.
Right. I mean, yes and no. I mean, shortly after, like I would kind of get nervous in like big crowds and stuff, like going to the mall like a couple days before Christmas. Like I had like one small panic attack type thing, but I think that was just because now I kind of like observe everyone around me, and it was just like an overload of people. But no, other than that, I kind of live by the rule that I'm not going to let that stop me from enjoying my life and doing the things I want to do. It's not going to stop me from traveling. It's not going to stop me from going back on trains or anything. So I'm just, just kind of operating with that mentality. But yeah.
Well, you've already done what I was just going to ask you to do. You've given him another round of applause. Well, Spencer, I don't know whether or not you can dance, but I know you got some boats. But I do know that you embody the very essence of what we're celebrating this week. You embody what we say here at Northwood, and that is go mad. Go make a difference. And we always say to never underestimate your ability to make a difference in someone's life. Some of those differences are smaller, some are bigger. This guy made a huge difference. So, I'm going to ask you one more time. Would you please give it up for Spencer Stone?
Thank you, guys. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah.